Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Welcome back to the John Krasinski Show. This is one of our normal shows. Last week was an abnormal show. It was just such a blast. We were lucky to be in the arena during the logo and jersey reveal at Target Center, and it was a blast. Matt Caldwell had some newsy things to say that we will recap this week. But the fan base, the people who showed up for John's podcast, the way the whole day went, it was just like, I talked to some fans, John, who were leaving the Twins game saying, oh man, tiny crowd, I guess it's not a big day for sports, not a day anybody wanted to go out. And then they walked up and they saw this line stretching all around Target Center for people to get in and just look at a logo. The Wolves really, if you don't win the championship, there's going to be disappointment and even some anger at the end of the season. But in general, the Wolves really have it rolling right now in terms of the fan base, their popularity, and it's just a blast to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was an unbelievable scene. I mean, there were more than 7,000 people in the arena for a uniform unveiling that most people already knew what the uniforms looked like because they had leaked online. And so I think it's a tribute to two things. First and foremost, I do think that this organization has done a very good job of sort of capturing the interest of the fan after building some success. So, they have a team that fans really have gravitated to, and they've done a good job of cultivating that fan base and of keeping them interested and giving them things to get excited about. And so, we said this forever, Jim, on this show, even long before this last 4 or 5 year run, is that this is a city, or this is a market and a state, really, that if you give them good basketball, they are really going to come out and support it. And so that's what we're seeing now. I mean, you don't get 7,000 people on a nice Sunday afternoon in Minneapolis to come inside and sit in for 2 hours and watch something that you knew was what was going to be happening and what it all looked like. And so that's, really first and foremost is like, this is a basketball market that, the Wolves have earned that support back from this fan base with the success that they've had. And the second part is, it's, I was telling this to Dan Barrero last week too, is there's just a real fascination with uniform, logo, aesthetics that I think people overlook in terms of just what gets a fan's interest. Because I'll tell you, like, anecdotally, the story that I wrote off of the unveiling, with kind of interviews with Alex Rodriguez and Mike Rawle and Jen Zanata, and just kind of going in depth into how the process worked to get this new look, did about 4 times the audience that the end of the season coverage of the team did. And I mean, it's just like, there's a real kind of hunger and thirst for information about what goes into designing uniforms, getting the look, getting the merch that you can buy on a hoodie, on a t-shirt, on a hat. And I think there's some real excitement for it, just because there was a pretty lukewarm feeling about the old look. And so I think there's excitement for all of that. And so from that aspect of it, I just thought that the unveiling was a big time success.
John Krasinski Show is one of our more popular shows at TalkNorth.com. Please go to TalkNorth.com to check out the full lineup. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, and we're presented by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Also, welcome back to Great Clips, another great sponsor. We'll tell you about our sponsors here in a little bit. Also, make sure you watch us on YouTube and follow the John Krasinski Show on Instagram and Facebook so you'll see each episode as it is released. Check out all the other great shows at TalkNorth.com. We have Mark Rosen, Dawn Mitchell, Russo, LaPanta, Roy Smalley, Lavelli, Neil III on the baseball show, Jeff Diamond, Alec Lewis, et cetera, et cetera. We have really enjoyed growing this network, and we appreciate everyone who listens. Let's get to it. I can't believe we waited 4 minutes and 30 seconds to get to this topic. Karl Anthony Towns is a champion.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how you can do anything but feel really good for the guy. He did not have a final game that was indicative of his playoff run. He got in foul trouble. One or two of the fouls might have been questionable, but that's just the way it was, 2 points. But when you look at the entirety of his run, and I believe his plus minus was like 248, which is the highest, in modern history, with just what he was able to do on off percentage, and better than Steph Curry, better than a lot of the legends in this game. And he was an integral part of what the Knicks did. And to see him have a chance to raise that trophy, to hug his fiance and his dad, and think about kind of all of the stuff that he's had to deal with, all of the nonsense and kind of the suggestions of softness and all of those things, like he's overcome all of that. And he deserves all the credit. He matured his game. He got himself to a place where he was an incredibly important piece of one of the best playoff teams of all time, and one of the most historic playoff runs that you could ever imagine. And so, he took a lot of slings and arrows over the years. And so to see him smiling, to see him rewarded, to see him grow the way that he has, it's just it was a really cool thing for me to watch as someone who's known him since he first entered the league.
It was also cool to see Anthony Edwards and him communicating with each other the way they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cat called Ant during the hoopla, and those two remain close. And I talked to Ant during the playoffs. I talked to Karl during the playoffs earlier, and both of them made it clear that they were checking up on each other, that they maintained contact. I think I can share this. Like, it was probably early in the San Antonio series when the Wolves won game 1 and the Knicks were playing really well, and I was just texting Cat to check in on how things were going, and he was like, "Now y'all hold up your end of the bargain too." Like, he was like pushing and watching the Wolves and wanted them to go far, and he wanted to face them in the finals, and he was rooting for Ant and Naz Reid and Rudy and Jaden and everyone that he knows so well. And I think that Ant and Naz and Rudy and all these guys were rooting for Karl as well. Like, this was a very close relationship that they had, and that they continue to have, and they have never lost contact with each other. Like, Karl is a very social dude. He likes to call and check in on his guys and offer advice, maybe even sometimes when it's not exactly needed or welcomed, but like, hey, that's what Karl does, and these guys have all appreciated that. And I asked Naz about that at the end of the season, and he said that he wanted to get out in the playoffs and see Karl personally, for one-on-one, and cheer for him as well. So I think that there's just a lot of affection for him because he's a big, goofy, lovable dude that just wants to be a good teammate and wants to have fun with his guys. And so to see in that moment, Cat and Ant kind of really just touching base in the middle of the chaos was very, very cool. And I'm sure that Ant's really happy for him, but I'm also sure that Ant is very motivated to find his way to that mountaintop as well.
Yes. What do you take away from the way these playoffs went? I look at it and say, okay, listen, the Knicks, as I said, one of the most dominant playoff teams in history, and they play brilliantly together, and they play great defense. They do so many things well, but it's not like they built a super team, out of established superstars. They just played really good basketball. I almost feel like that gives the Wolves some hope.
Yeah, I think it does, because I think first and foremost, the Knicks team that won this championship, all of them are 28, 29, 30 years old, 27. They're all older guys. Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson. They're all high 20s or early 30s. And I thought one thing that really shined through in this series against the Spurs was the Spurs, I felt, played like a team that thought, this is easy. We'll be here again. Like this is no trouble at all. Like this is what's supposed to happen. And so some of the shot selection, some of the carelessness, some of the kind of immaturity just in approach to the game, I think shined through for the Spurs. And then on the other side, I thought the Knicks, with all of their kind of in their prime veterans who have all been through a whole lot of wars and ups and downs in this league, I think they played with an urgency that said, this may be our only chance. We've gone through real difficult situations, and we've been really close and fallen short, and we've been on teams that haven't been very good and lost a bunch of games, and we know how fickle this is, and so we have to take advantage of this chance because maybe another one isn't coming. And so I just think that the overall age and maturity and urgency of that roster really played into things, and I do think that sometimes over the last year or two, maybe we've seen this Timberwolves team, even with Rudy Gobert, even with Mike Conley, even with Julius Randle, like the younger core, I think was starting to feel like, hey, if we don't get it this year, we'll be back next year. We heard Ant say it. We heard Ant talk about that before. And so I think you have to get to a point where you respect how difficult it is to get to that doorstep. And once you're there, you don't take it for granted. And so this last run, I don't think was much of that, just because I think they were banged up and injured. They played a great team and they lost. But I thought the Dallas series for sure was that. Oklahoma City a little bit, even though Oklahoma City was a great team. They just didn't play with the sort of attention to detail, the focus, and the desperation that you need in those moments. And so maybe losing in the second round the way that they did, maybe seeing Karl Anthony Towns come through the way that he did, will stoke a little bit of a different energy in them going forward. But the second part of that, Jim, is that what the Knicks showed us is the importance of staying with it, of not giving up, of not getting down, because that team in the regular season, in the Eastern Conference, won 53 games. It's a good record. You'd take 53 wins. The Wolves would certainly take it, but it's not a record that is indicative of, here comes a generational playoff run. And what it happened was, even within the middle of that Atlanta series, where they started out really poorly, they found something, and they kept adjusting, and they kept tweaking, and they got to a point where they just took off, and then they ran through the rest of these playoffs. And the Eastern Conference was one thing, but then to beat San Antonio the way that they did was remarkable. And so I think, like, if there is a hopelessness that's within the Wolves fan base, or this is never going to happen for us, the Knicks had not won a title in 53 years. I guarantee that their fan base, even at times this season, and maybe even at times in that first round of the playoffs, was like, it's not going to happen for us. This is never going to work out. But if you keep putting your chips into the middle of the table, things can turn around. And it doesn't take a sea change trade. It doesn't take a huge amount of major differences and things like that. It can all click into place. And so you hear Chris Finch and Tim Connolly talk about just having a seat at the table as much as possible. And I do think that has got to be the approach for the Wolves here as well. They'll try to make changes. They will certainly do some things to try to improve this roster. But the biggest thing is can you just keep showing up and getting to the table just in case injuries go your way, just in case any number of things happen? It can work out. If it can work out for the Knicks, it can work out for the Wolves, no question about it.
We want to talk about possible trades, getting to the draft, some things that Matt Caldwell said last week on this show. Right now, we do want to remind you we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio.
Scott for Aquarius, your independent authorized Connecticut dealer. Are you ready for the worry-free water your family deserves? This summer, trade in your old water softener and trade up to a Connecticut system. Say goodbye to hard water, rust stains, and contaminants, and hello to worry-free water and an additional $500 off on top of our summer sale pricing. Schedule your free water test today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
And we'd like to thank presenting sponsor Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to lexusofwayzata.com or lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
Thanks also to Great Clips.
Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why I use Clip Notes to save my haircut details, so no matter which stylist I see or which Great Clips salon I visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of me. So do yourself a favor, say goodbye to guesswork, and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the app today. Great Clips. It's going to be great.
So it is time to start talking about the draft. What are the prospects of actually getting a player out of the draft? And could you see Tim Connolly doing something really aggressive the way he did when he went up to get Rob Dillingham?
Yeah, so when I look at this draft and I look at kind of how things are valued and what the Timberwolves need, they're sitting right now at the 28th pick. I would just be surprised if they stay at 28 and pick. So if you look at what the Wolves do with their roster, generally speaking, I don't know that they're going to draft a rookie that is going to come in and play and contribute quite a bit. And so, to me, I see two options. I see trade the number 28 pick as part of a package for a veteran player, or if you get down to 28, maybe you trade down back into the second round and pick up some future assets for a team that wants to come up and get someone that they like. And maybe you can restock your cupboard just a little bit as well. This is not a guarantee. I'm not reporting that the Timberwolves will not pick at 28, but I'm just saying that what I see in terms of their options available, it would make sense to me that either they use that pick in a trade for a vet, or they kind of dump out of it, pick up some future assets, and then go looking and maybe you get a few seconds, maybe you get a future protected first or something like that, and then you can use that ammunition in deal making the rest of this summer or into next season or whatever it is. It's just the odds of finding someone at 28 that is going to step in and be a rotation player for you on a team that does want to get back into contention just seems kind of low to me right now at this point.
Do you think Julius Randle, this first round pick, maybe another future pick, gets you Kyrie Irving?
I don't think so anymore, Jim. We talked a lot about this earlier on in this summer, and it was kind of funny because there was an aggregation of my comments on a show from like 12 days ago that moved like yesterday, like as it was breaking news. And I was just like, hey, you guys got to subscribe to the John Krasinski show so it jumps right into your feed because you're way late on this. But one of the things that we've discussed is when you look at their available options, I thought, and I still do think, I would say that it is much easier to get a package together to deal for Kyrie Irving than it would be for Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's just so much more money. There's so much more value right now for Giannis that it's going to be difficult for the Timberwolves to figure something like that out. But in the last, I would say, week to 10 days, there's been more and more signs coming out of Dallas that Kyrie is going to stay there. That the Mavericks want Kyrie to play alongside Cooper Flagg, that Kyrie really enjoys being in Dallas, and that he wants to stay there. It did seem like he has found some kind of comfort and tranquility there, so that makes sense. And so while I believe that if the Wolves were going to trade for Kyrie Irving, yes, like maybe it would be Julius Randle, a number 1 pick, and something else to get Kyrie versus needing 8 different pieces to get Giannis. I just think that is looking more and more unlikely at this point. And so what exactly the Timberwolves do to address their ball handling is going to be, we'll have to see. But the Kyrie Irving steam has definitely been reduced by quite a bit. And at this point, I would be very surprised if a Kyrie Irving deal got done.
Wow. What's their next best trade option?
So one thing that I'm starting to explore more is the possibility of not them trading for Giannis, but of getting in as a third team where Giannis goes somewhere else and pieces come to Minnesota. This is just my speculation, nothing more, but there's been a lot of heat about Boston getting back into the Giannis sweepstakes. And so if they do make that happen, Jaylen Brown likely goes elsewhere. I don't think Jaylen Brown comes here with his contract situation, but what if Derek White is the guy that comes to Minnesota in some sort of 3-team Giannis thing? Now, I would imagine the Celtics want to keep Derek White with Tatum and Giannis and go forward that way, but that would be some, kind of scenario that I would explore. If Giannis were to go to Orlando, is there a way to get Jalen Suggs out of Orlando? Maybe that would be something that I would look at exploring. And so I don't have like the problem right now is that there's not a magic bullet option out there. An obvious, yes, okay, go get this guy and your problems are solved. Whatever happens, whoever the Wolves do end up getting, the fans have to be kind of prepared for the fact that it's going to be a player who comes in with some real upside and somebody that will maybe help the Wolves in areas that they need it, but also is going to have a downside or two, whether it's their age, whether it's their injury history, whether it's their contract. It's going to be someone that you're going to have to look at and say, okay, the overall fit with this roster is going to be better with player X than it was with our previous set, but there's going to be a bit of a roll of the dice here. Hope he stays healthy. Hope he's not at the end of his prime. Hope that money doesn't prohibit the Wolves from doing other things or staying flexible enough. And so there's going to be an element of finger crossing that is involved in this Wolves summer. I still do believe that they're going to make changes that will change the look of their team to a considerable degree, but the idea that someone is coming in that's going to be perfect and that is only going to take Julius Randle and Flotsam that you don't want to get, that you're fine getting rid of, is probably not going to be the case.
Yeah, that all sounds logical. All right, let's thank some of our other key sponsors here helped us grow this show and this network, starting with longtime OGs TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. We need to get Steve Terry back on the show soon. He's going to be very fun to talk to about this off season. But what you need to know is if you're ever injured, you just call 612-TSR-TIME. This is a Minneapolis, Minnesota company that has grown because they help Minnesotans. They will help you. They will not charge you unless they win your case, and they win a lot of cases. Space 612-TSR-TIME. Thanks also to True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. If you go to truevision.com, you set up your free consultation, go on in, and just get taken care of to an incredible degree. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, you see that I am not wearing glasses anymore. I have not worn glasses or contacts for 2 years now because of the good folks at True Vision. They take wonderful care of you from the start of your process all the way to the end. I had LASIK surgery there, and it's been one of the best things that I have ever done for myself. So if you're looking for a trustworthy, very educational, super comfortable experience, go to truevision.com and get going with True Vision in Bloomington. They will take unbelievable care of you, and they will get you through from start to finish. True Vision in Bloomington.
SGLambchops.com sponsors the Twitter question at the end of every show, and they're great sponsors. It's great to see. It's great to see them out at the Target Center event. What's going on with SGLambchops.com?
Yeah, if you go to sglambchops.com, put in the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything that you can get at Lamb Chops, all of the great casual wear that they have, hoodies, sweatpants, shirts, shorts, hats, sweaters, everything that you want is at Lamb Chops. We will be, when we announce our new location for a live show this summer, I think we're going to also do a collaboration with Lamb Chops on some merch as well, so we're really excited about that. But go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off all of the great stuff that they have at Lamb Chops.
So Micah Nori is now finally a true head coaching candidate. We kind of all knew this day would come. What are his prospects right now?
Yeah, a little bit of breaking news just as we're recording this, Jim, that the Chicago Bulls have hired Tiago Splitter to be their head coach, according to Shams Charania. He's reporting that. And Splitter coached the Portland Trailblazers last season, and Micah Nori is in the running for the Portland job as well. And so with Splitter out, I do think there is a really good chance for Micah Nori in Portland. I know that he's also been in the mix for Dallas as well, and the Mavericks are going through kind of an exhaustive, extensive search. But I do think that Tiago Splitter being hired away from Portland to go to Chicago really opens the door wide for Micah Nori in Portland, and he has a very good shot there. So we'll see how that all shakes out. But I do think, over the last several years, he's been in the mix and interviewing for a lot of positions and always kind of been on the outside looking in. But this Portland situation feels like it is maybe his best shot yet to get a job. And so he's very deserving. He will be a very good head coach in this league. The Wolves would be sad to lose him, but just seeing that this morning that Splitter is headed to Chicago really has my dauber up that Micah has a real chance in Portland.
What's the Portland ownership situation? I almost wonder if Micah might have a chance because he really wants to be head coach in the league. He might maybe work for a little less, and it sounds like Portland is pretty tight with money.
Yeah, so Tom Dundon is the new owner of the Portland Trailblazers. He just came in this season. He also owns the Carolina Hurricanes that just won the Stanley Cup. He has ruffled a lot of feathers in Portland for the way that he has tightened the purse strings, the way that he, has said that he doesn't believe that coaches should make all that much money, that it should all be the resources should be dedicated elsewhere. And so when you look at, is Micah Nori going to cost as much as Jeff Van Gundy or a high profile of Tom Thibodeau, someone like that? No, I do think that he would be certainly on the more bargain side of being a head coach. So that may appeal. Though what anyone would have a question about going into that situation is, do they have the resources to compete? in the NBA? And is the owner willing to spend money where he needs to spend money so the roster can be competitive, so they have all of the care around the organization to make it an attractive place for free agents to come? So there are a lot of questions that Tom Dundon would have to answer, but there are only 30 of these jobs in the NBA. And so I do think with Micah at this stage of his career, with what he's accomplished with the Timberwolves, I think he's, in his early to mid 50s right now as well. And so he probably would like just to get a real opportunity. And that's a good roster with the Trailblazers. And so even if there are some questions that you have about ownership, I still think if the offer doesn't come in at just like minimum wage, I think you got to really take it. And so, Micah's ability to command a huge salary is not there. And so that may even help him as well in this process.
Yeah. And wish him well. Great guy. He's been on this show. Came out to one of our live shows. We appreciate Micah. And, we'd miss him, but I'm rooting for him. Matt Caldwell hinted at some interesting news when we had him on the show last week at Target Center.
Yeah, it was a really good. I recommend everyone going back and listening to it because I'll be honest. If you're a Wolves fan and you're looking at that show, just at the thumbnails, you see Sam Mitchell, then you see Rocco Zikarsky and Johan Berenger. You get excited about those conversations, and then you see at the end CEO Matt Caldwell, and you're thinking, oh, okay, do I really need to listen to the business side of things? But I would really recommend it. Matt was great with us. He was really open and honest with us. I think one of the things that was really interesting to me is, and I don't know that he's said this really much before publicly, but he was really upfront and open that they have all but decided that the site for a new arena is going to be downtown Minneapolis. We have seen plenty of other teams and other markets explore suburban sites, the Atlanta Braves being kind of one of the biggest, most recent kind of teams to go outside of the downtown area and have a lot of success. And so you heard, well, hey, maybe Eagan, maybe the old Brookdale Mall site in Brooklyn Center, maybe there's other places that the Wolves could look to in the metro area with more space for real estate and for business and development around it. But Matt was very forthright with us in saying that they want to be downtown, that they believe that the leadership, the government officials want it to happen downtown. And just so there's a lot more details that we talked about with the arena, with tickets, with the television situation that I recommend that people go back and listen to. But that one was kind of really stuck out to me of like a pretty definitive statement that Target Center 2.0, whatever it is probably going to be downtown, which I think is a great thing.
Oh, no doubt about it. I was really glad to hear that. I don't know how they're going to pull it off, but hey, one thing I'll say about building stadia around the Twin Cities, I knew a lot of people who were involved in the building and the approval and the architecture of Target Field. And until they found the right architect to put in the right plan, nobody thought that a stadium could fit where it currently fits. Smallest footprint in Major League Baseball, and it's fabulous. I mean, it's just a great ballpark, and it fits perfectly into the city. So I'll be really interested to see how they pull it off. I'm not, but I'm pretty optimistic. Somebody who lives in Minneapolis, I'm pretty optimistic they can make it work.
Yeah, I think like it's a good point, and I would say like the thing that is probably in the Wolves' favor right now versus what the Twins were dealing with when they built Target Field is, unfortunate, but it's the reality. Downtown Minneapolis has had a lot of tenants of those huge skyscrapers and a lot of big corporations kind of get out. After COVID, there wasn't as much, I think, of an appetite for the enormous rents that you have to pay by having hundreds or thousands of employees be downtown and commute in every day. And so I think that there are more opportunities to look at areas of downtown where Maybe you're bulldozing some buildings and creating your more room. Kind of like I'm just thinking just off the top of my head, like that blocky area and where Mayo Clinic Square is, and just to the east of there, in all of that open office space. And maybe there's a more of an opportunity to create their own room and to really kind of revitalize that particular area of downtown with a new arena, with new hotels, with new, kind of commerce and restaurants and things like that. And that's interesting to me, at least. And so I would imagine that the real estate procurement, that the overhead costs of some of that is going to be lower now than what the Twins were dealing with back there. But you're right in terms of the overall. If you want to get something done, if city leaders want to get something done, people can get creative and make it happen. And I do think that the city of Minneapolis understands that if you lose 41 home games a year, and if you lose playoff games and things like that, you're really taking a ton of reason to go down there on a night, on a weekend, away from people, and so there's, I'm sure, going to be motivation to try and make something happen. This is not me advocating for increased taxes for new buildings or anything like that. I understand the complications involved with anything like that, but I think the value that the Timberwolves have shown to downtown nightlife. I mean, you and I have talked to plenty of bar owners and stuff, Jim. Like, there are bars that just aren't open when the Timberwolves aren't playing down there. Like, and so it's needed. It's just needed to anchor, that portion of the city, and it seems like Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez recognize that, and I don't think Matt Caldwell would be as sort of open with that part of their desires if they didn't think that there was something to be done there. And so I think that all of that is for the best for this franchise, for these fans, for the city in general, if everyone stays downtown somewhere.
You'd also miss Lynx games, which are well attended, and we're going to start doing kind of some Lynx talk segments on this show. We also talk about the Lynx pretty regularly on Don Mitchell's show, and Leah B. Olson is our resident expert on the Lynx for the Don Mitchell show. John and I have both covered the Lynx. We'll talk about the Lynx here. The incredible game against the Aces, 197. You know how hard it is to have 197 points scored in a 40-minute game? Olivia Miles going up against the champs and playing great. And they haven't even gotten Fee and Juhas back, who might be, who both will probably be in the start. I mean, Fee's their best player. I think Juhas is a starting player.
Yeah, 100%. And we can get more into this at another time, but I think that at the start of the season, there was writing on the wall that Nafisa Collier's time in Minnesota was coming to an end. That it looks like, she kept her options open with the way that she structured her contract so that she could go elsewhere. And maybe that still will be the case at the end of it. But man, if I'm her and I'm looking at Olivia Miles and the prospect of being a pick and roll partner with her for the next 10 years, like, what better partner could you pick on the open market than her right now? And so if I am Nafisa Collier, and I am not, and she is incredibly smart and she makes incredible decisions for her, for the league, for everything, but I'm thinking long and hard about staying in Minnesota for the long term, and teaming up with Olivia Miles. And if it's Olivia and Fee, there's no other 1-2 punch I want in the entire league. And that's not a hyperbole. That's not anything. I think Nafisa is a top 2 player in the league. Mm-hmm. And I think that Olivia Miles might already be the best point guard in the league, or at least top 3. And so you put those two together, man, what a just tantalizing prospect for not only this year and whatever can happen when Fee comes back and is healthy, but for the long term. And so it'll be very interesting to see how all that plays out.
We'll talk more about the Lynx. We'll talk about them earlier in the show, too, as we get rolling on that part of the show. For today, we want to get to the Twitter question of the week, sponsored by sglambchops.com. Once again, thank you all for listening. Thanks to those who came out to the live show last week. And thanks to John for putting together such a great show.
Yeah, again, go to sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get there. This week's question is a good one from Gotro25. There's a lot of focus on Johan as the untouchable reports flow in, but where does Rocco slot into the Wolves' future plans? And so to go down both paths here, my colleague Sam Amick and Eric Nem both kind of put out a Giannis landscape story a few days ago. And kind of the gist of it was that Milwaukee, if you read between the lines of it, Milwaukee's underwhelmed with their offers so far for Giannis. It's particularly from Miami. They seem to be the front runner for it. Maybe Boston is starting to get back into it. But essentially saying that, hey, the Bucks would probably be wise, and I think are quietly trying to really canvass the market to see if there are any other teams that can get back into this thing and give them something that they like better than what Miami has on the table. And so one of the teams obviously mentioned were the Timberwolves because of how aggressive they were during the trade deadline last year or last season, and kind of my view on it is you can never count the Timberwolves out because Tim Connolly has been so aggressive in trying to make big trades, whether it's Giannis, KD, Rudy, a bunch of guys he's gone after. But one of the details that Sam reported was that the Wolves have signaled to Milwaukee that Jaden McDaniels and Johan Berenger are off limits. And so the reason that they would be off limits, I think, is that one, they're really good players, but two is that there's a reluctance on the Timberwolves' part to get too old around Anthony Edwards. They can't give up all their good young players and then just be stuck with an aging guy. And so I believe that is the case, that the Wolves don't want to part with Johan and with Jaden. Secondly, where does Rocco stand is there's a lot of optimism for Rocco long term. I think he's probably going to need some more time in Iowa, but there's a belief that he can be a true stretch five, that he can shoot threes, that he can draw people out of the paint. And when you look at trying to go up against Wembanyama going forward, is he going to be a starter in this league? I don't know about a starter in this league, but I do believe that they think that he can develop into a good rotation big to play, spell Johan Berenger to come out and give them a different look. And so he's very much in their long-term plans as a guy who is 7'4", who looks Wemby right in the eyes and can actually shoot it from outside a little bit. So there's a lot of intrigue there.
Good stuff, John. Always enjoy it. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again to everyone who watches, everyone who listens. Check out talknorth.com, and it's going to be a really interesting summer for the Timberwolves.